Michael J., the Whig Tory, the opinion. We're going to talk Canadian politics, starting with who we think is going to be the next Canadian Prime Minister. Now, the long shot, it's going to be the Liberal government back in power. I think that's the most prudent way of doing things, providing Jagmeet Singh can get his crap together and provide support for a minority government to keep the government in power until October, so that the people can see how a nationalist, socialist movement like Trump's is a disaster for the people. The only way to see it is by seeing it. People buy into it. They go for these movements, but they don't realize what these movements are about until it's too late and they can't change. So here we are, starting with Mark Carney. He's got the best chance to be the new Prime Minister under a Liberal government. Mind you, a Liberal government's going to be a long shot. But he has the best chance. He's got international qualifications that make him the best candidate. And he doesn't have the baggage of the Justin Trudeau government. Simple as that. Number 2, we're going to look at Chrystia Freeland. Girl's a pit bull. Girl's a pit bull? Oh, my. She is. Trump's afraid of her. He knows he can't compete with her. That's one thing about it. he knows he can't compete against this gal. But I think her days are over. She shot herself in the foot how she handled dealing with Trudeau. That was a bad move. She's accepted it and dealt with it probably in the best way possible, but I don't think she'll be able to get away from that entanglement. So let's move to number 3 here now. Pierre Poilievre. Now this guy, in all likelihood, will be the next Prime Minister, which will be a huge mistake for the Canadian population because the guy's only got 2 tricks in his bag of tricks. Tax cuts and free markets, deregulation, free markets. And I'll tell you why that's bad. Tax cuts are great, sound great. Not going to make you rich. Not going to pay your rent at the end of the month either. What tax cuts have done over the last 50 years have wiped out the middle class. Totally wiped out the middle class because of tax cuts. Free markets. You've seen what free markets and deregulation's done to the rental property markets locally. You'll see Doug Ford, Conservative government in Ontario. And you have to understand prices are a result of local factors. And a Conservative government in Ontario has torpedoed the Ontario landscape. Free markets, 1-bedroom apartment, $2,400 a month. Average guy can't afford that. Average house, $1.1 million. Free markets. So there's no deregulation. And it's a result of Doug Ford, Conservative government, and free markets. They don't work. Tax cuts, they don't work. Simple as that. Just do your research. Next, long shot for the Liberals is this Karina Gould. You never know, but that's a long shot. Might as well just throw it up there so you can see. And good old Pierre Poilievre. Jagmeet Singh. Let's get to this lad now. He's got an interesting story. It's in some ways quite a sad story. Gives him unique insights into what life's like. But also at the same time, I don't think is mature enough to be a leader of a country. I think the smartest thing he could do at this juncture is support the Liberals, get himself into a better position, and maybe he'll be able to create different point of views, different ways of looking at things, and also different ways of being able to appeal to more of the Canadian population, because that's what's lacking with his point of view, his party, and he just doesn't get it. It'll be just like Bob Rae coming back into power with the NDP. It wasn't until Bob Rae came into the Liberal Party later, even though he was a Rhodes Scholar during his provincial tenure with the NDP, it was a fiasco. And the same thing will happen with Jagmeet Singh. So he'd be best to prop up the Liberals. That'll help his political career immensely. Otherwise, he's gonna torpedo his career. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Now, we're going to move on here. This is my opinion. Understand that. You're welcome to put in the comments what you think. And that's where we're at. Now, we're going to look at things from a point of view of populace. And this is where Pierre Poilievre comes into play. And I want you to watch this. There's a guy by the name of Steve Boots, school teacher from out in Western Canada. Very pragmatic. I think him and I are on the same, somewhat same wavelength to a degree. Excuse me, I got a bit of a dry throat. It's a long story. But I think he needs a little bit of spit and polish. I can help him with that. You know, these Western Canadian guys. But the thing is, he's got a very well-defined way of articulating some very important points, I think, that the electorate needs to become aware of, allow themselves to become aware of. And so let's look at Pierre Poilievre with Trump.
I want to take some time to talk about the Donald Trump presidency and the way that he's been acting before he's even entered office, because I think it's pretty instructive about populists in general. Because while he and Pierre Poilievre are very different politicians, they run a fairly similar playbook, and that is running from right-wing populism, the sort of man of the people thing. You see, right-wing populists really love to claim that they care about your pocketbook issues, the issues that matter to you, the issues that are close to home. Like, Pierre Poilievre likes to claim that he's going to axe the tax and suddenly you're going to have infinity money. Now, he is very obviously lying about the carbon tax at pretty much every turn, like how he's going to triple in April, which is not going to happen, or quadruple. He sometimes says quadruple. The number changes pretty regularly, and the way that he talks about it changes pretty regularly. The fact is, at present, you pay about 17 cents a liter of carbon tax if you're in a province that isn't on the federal backstop program. The increase in April is going to make it 20 cents. But he's going to claim that it's 65 cents a liter, with no evidence to support this.
Government that is threatening even more devastating tariffs on Canada in the form of a carbon tax that will rise to 61 cents a liter.
He's just going to lie to you to try to get what he wants, because he wants you to think that the affordability crisis centers on the carbon tax, when in reality it doesn't. It is a lot more complicated than that, but he wants you to think that it's simple. And it's the same as Donald Trump. You remember when he was super focused on grocery prices during the campaign and talked about chicken and eggs and bacon all the time and how he was going to magically fix all that? How he was going to bring down the prices of groceries? He made it very clear that he was focused on the cost of living and that through cutting immigration, taxes, and everything, he was somehow going to save you money. But think about what happened once he got elected, once he got what he wanted from the public. He changed direction entirely. He started trade wars, started threatening to annex other countries while trying to push through his nominees for prominent posts internally. It's all about power, distraction, and diversion. You'll notice he hasn't mentioned grocery prices at all. He seems to have stopped caring about them entirely. In fact, he seems to have stopped caring entirely about pocketbook issues. He's openly acknowledged that the tariff wars he's starting are going to raise prices for Americans. He just doesn't seem to care. I mean, he's just going to do it anyways. Why? Because he can get away with it. Because he's convinced the public that somehow he's looking out for their interests while not doing any of the things that he said he was going to do. And this is exactly what's going to happen with Pierre Poilievre. There is extensive evidence that shows that the effects of carbon tax on inflation in Canada have been pretty minimal. Below 0.5% at most, according to most estimates. Now, that's not to say it doesn't exist. It does. But do you know what else causes a lot of inflation? Climate change. Rebuilding houses and buildings that burn down from forest fires is expensive. Dealing with crop failures due to climate change is expensive. dealing with flooding, dealing with natural disasters, and all of the other costs that are attached to them have costs.
And we've seen this just recently with California, and also in Western Canada and Jasper. Same thing. And people don't understand that climate change is a real issue. It's not fake, folks. We've been punting that ball to the back 50 over and over again, and now it's a point of no return, and it's hurting people. This is why we have such wild variations in weather, and it's hurting people. And you've got to understand, get rid of this greed. Things can be changed. All it takes is a qualified change of consciousness of the people. And this is where younger people have to educate themselves on what we need. We need to take care of the planet because the planet has everything that we need to survive as human beings, to have a full and eventful life. And this is the way it should be. So let's finish up with Steve here.
With all these natural disasters is expensive. We can't go on pretending that not doing anything about the climate is free. It has a cost too. Just look at Los Angeles. And that brings me to the second part of how right-wing populists like Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump run versus how they govern. They need to have you blame somebody other than them. Always. It has to be somebody else's fault because they don't have any real answers to offer. Like, once the carbon tax is eliminated, it's not really going to reduce costs to ordinary Canadians, at least not significantly. But more than that, the carbon tax isn't added at the till, it's priced into the costs of goods. Do you really think that retailers, producers, and manufacturers are just going to reduce the prices that you pay at the till out of the goodness of their hearts? There's no legal requirement for the pass-on savings to you. They're just going to pocket them and pass them on to their shareholders. But Pierre Poilievre is really, really hoping you don't notice that. And so just watch. If he cuts the carbon tax and it doesn't work, and it doesn't magically fix the Canadian economy, then what? We already know what's going to happen. He's going to insist that somehow Justin Trudeau broke the economy so completely and so horribly that he's going to need decades of economic carte blanche in order to fix it. That he needs to be able to do whatever he wants and blame everything that doesn't work on Justin Trudeau, the Liberals, the terrible situation he was left with, and more. Like in Saskatchewan, where I'm from, Scott Moe has been blaming the NDP for nearly 20 years, even though he's been in power for nearly a decade. But here's the thing, blame is complicated. Even though Pierre Poilievre wants you to think that it's simple. The most obvious example of this is when he talks about the drop in the value of the Canadian dollar. He almost always points at Justin Trudeau about that, suggesting that the drop in the Canadian dollar started in 2015. One snag, Trudeau wasn't elected until October of that year, and the major drop in the Canadian dollar happened under the Conservatives. You see, whenever Pierre Poilievre acts like only he can fix the economy and Conservatives have the answers to everything, I feel like a very important question that he needs to address is, why did Justin Trudeau and the Liberals beat the Conservatives in 2015? It wasn't some sort of...
Okay, and here's the other thing you people have to understand. We need a dollar around 70 to 72 cents to be competitive. This helps our country. You don't realize that. I sat in parlor rooms in Rosedale 50, 60 years ago, and even then, partners in the major law firms and financial institutions of Canada knew that it was best to have a Canadian dollar at 70 to 72 cents for us to be competitive, and it helps our economy. There are other micro and macroeconomic factors that are at play that you people need to become aware of. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description for Steve Boots. I think this is a great guy. If you want to learn something about Canadian politics and get some facts about what's really going on, a pragmatic, well-grounded viewpoint to help you understand, I greatly recommend his channel. Now, if you have any further questions, you're free to write in the comments. I'll try and get back. But you have to open up dialogue. You have to become informed. You can make that choice. And here's the thing. Sorry, dry throat. You, the people, are the ones that need to be taken care of first. And we can have pain and suffering. Do you still want to continue always to have pain and suffering? And they prep you by saying, oh, there's going to be pain and suffering. There's no reason for pain and suffering. or do you want heaven on earth? It's really that simple. It's hard to wrap your head around it because you've been led to believe for centuries that it's not that easy. But it is that easy, and people need to work together, and it can be done. Any questions, comments, please in the chat. And remember, Bob is your uncle. And do like my two little buddies. When things get a little overwhelming, anxiety starts to set in, you're spiraling downward, close your eyes, take a deep breath, relax. Do what my two buddies here do. Take care. Love and peace to everyone. Talk to you all soon. Ciao.